This is Sports 225. Well, I didn't realize it had been over 2 months since I saw the Mad Dog, Ron Higgins, he of the Shreveport Journal and his own website. And that's a long time to go without the laughs that we share on this show. And how are you?
I'm good. I mean, I just been busy. I've been watching a guy win a Heisman. I've been watching a women's basketball player disappear in the thin air with the coach giving no reason. It's been good. It's been fun.
So I'm not, caring about the Heisman per se, but out of curiosity, when the email came on the stuff with credentials, I was curious. And so I clicked around and I saw that the Heisman ceremonies were kind enough to reserve a discounted room block at the New York Marriott Marquis for $409 a night. You talk about really helping the media out.
Oh, that's a huge discount. Last time I covered Joe Burrow in it, I stayed in a hotel by the airport, much cheaper. Flew in that afternoon, went straight to the ceremony, went right back to my hotel, kind of stayed up all night, took the 6 o'clock flight back to Baton Rouge. So there you go. I mean, it's like, once you've been in New York City and done all that, you don't really care to see it anymore. I mean, I've been there plenty of times, and it's a kamikaze mission. Get in, get out. That's it.
You sounded like a country hick saying that about New York City.
Look, I've seen it a million times. I've been there probably 10 to 15 times at least. Okay. I mean, and it is a great city. It has the energy like no other city you ever go into. I mean, it's got a vibe and energy until almost all night. You walk out at 2 o'clock in the morning, the sidewalks are full. It's a good vibe, but when I go cover something there like that, I just want to get in and out, and that's go in. It's different now than it was when, say, Peyton Manning was in it, because in that one you could actually kind of be in the ceremony. Now they put you separate, way of the media separate, and then they bring the guy in eventually to talk to. So,
is the media not in that big room, that theater where they bring it out?
No, they got you stuffed back in another room, ballroom somewhere where you, with a hot buffet. Of course, with media, it's okay, we're good. We've got a hot buffet. We're good. All right, just bring the guy in. Okay, we're good. We don't need to see anything else. We're good. And they bring the guy in, and you talk to him. But you can talk to him before the ceremony too, which is all right. They give you good access, but they don't give you access to the ceremony. So.
That's incredible to bother going to cover that, because the story can be done remotely. And I'm always in favor of journalists being on site. I hate this new thing since COVID where so many guys are calling games remotely from their homes in all sports, the play-by-play and the analyst.
Yeah.
And I think that's wrong. And any chance that you have where you can go, good. We got a Bichet guy. Who we got?
This is Skippy the Wonder Bichon. He picks college games with me. He was 8-2 a couple weeks ago.
He's the one, and he's licking licking your face. I love that. Hey, Skippy, show your face here though. You haven't looked over. You can't even tell he's got eyes. That's so much fur around him. That's awesome. But in this case, going there is just a vanity trip. Then, if you're not even in the room to feel it, but you covered the Joe Burrow one. That was one of the more remarkable evenings because the kid was so poised and had so much impact with what he said that night. You had to be touched.
It was probably the best Heisman speech I've ever heard. It was like never looked at a note, not one note. Didn't look down. Just went, and it was quite remarkable. One of the really good nights of my career to cover something like that and cover him. When I went there with Manning when he lost to Woodson, and the grace that he lost with was remarkable. He stuck around afterwards. All the Heisman, they have it was a Heisman, I guess was a New York Football Club or whatever it was. It was a bunch of old guys, and he stuck around for like 45 minutes afterwards, signing autographs for every one of them. When on the worst day of his life, when he should have won, but ESPN basically said, no, Charles Woodson is so dynamic and so versatile because he actually returns a few punts and plays a few plays on offense. So we're we're going to push him to win the Heisman when Manning should have won it. So, there was some trepidation down the stretch in this race, really, because Daniels was not on a playoff team or a team that could go into playoffs. But his stats just blew everybody else away.
Yeah, this race is over. I mean, it's if I can't imagine, except for homers in Oregon, not voting him first. But
exactly. I mean, like it wasn't like people said it was in doubt last weekend when Knicks didn't win against Washington. But I mean, he was better than Knicks in 27, 29 stat categories. I mean, every time I start going to Jaden Daniels stats, I find something I'm like, are you kidding me? Last night I looked. He had every game this year he's completed a pass at least for 42 yards or longer. Every game.
Well,
he has the longest run in the SEC this year and the longest pass in the SEC this year. It's just stupid. I mean, the more numbers you look at, it's like, his team was behind LSU was behind in the score more than 3 hours this year. A cumulative time of 3 hours. That's how much pressure was on him, like to score. We've got to score for us to win. And plus he's a really good kid. I mean, ever dealt with him, he's always pleasant, win or lose. His teammates rave about him, say the only guy they've ever played with, when he gets sacked, he gets up smiling. He gets up smiling every play. Like he's just happy to play. And it's been fun to watch him develop and really become the quarterback he has, and really kind of shut half of LSU's fans up who kept clamoring for Garrett Nussmeier, who's a fine quarterback, but Jaden Daniels is an exceptional.
I hope they put him in touch with Burrow this week for conversation and just to acclimate him with what's going on. And it'd be impossible for him to come through with a speech like Burrow did, who had everybody, like tearing up, and then talked about the impoverished area that he's from in Southern Ohio and raised so much money for the food bank there and other things. But hopefully he'll do well. We're visiting with Ron Higgins. He is a sports writer for the Shreveport Journal. He has his own website called
TheRonHiggins.com.
TheRonHiggins.com. I'm Lee Feinswalk. This is Sports 225.
Rec parks have a purpose. They contribute to community revitalization and safer neighborhoods. They entice folks to get out there, promoting health and well-being. There are green spaces that help sustain natural ecosystems and buffer flooding. Parks help children learn, promote the arts and cultural programs. They drive tourism, economic development, and enhance property values. So take your pick. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
Back on Sports 225, hanging out with Ron Higgins, and so far all we've done is talk about Heisman. And, Ron, my earliest memories of the Heisman back in the days when, of course, there was a Pac-8, a Southwest Conference, a Big 8. But I always thought about it in terms of like Olympic judging around the same time. I always, think, a guy would have a perfect dive and the Bulgarian judge would give him a 6.2. And, the Heisman Trophy, I realized at a young age, was both meaningless and a popularity contest. And
I think now you're able to make a more informed vote if you want to. I mean, because you can see virtually any game you want to see. I mean, you can.
There was no ESPN back then, for example. You got to, it was such a big deal at the end of the season when we would see one game with USC Notre Dame, which I'd look so forward to, because that was a big deal.
Yeah, basically Heisman's were publicity campaigns put together by SIDs with gimmicks, and they send you free swag and bobbleheads and all that kind of stuff. And, eventually with all the exposure they have, they haven't had to do that. They, down the stretch, really they didn't start pushing Daniels to like about 2-3 weeks ago because he was out there. And, you can see anybody you want. So there's no reason for a Heisman voter to not be informed about who guys are and how well they've done, who they played, because it's all out there. You can watch it live, you can watch it on a replay, you can look up stats. It's easy to do. So you would hope the voting would be a little more educated, but you're dealing with sports writers and you can't count on that. You're dealing with provincial people who Go vote for their guy.
Rob, there's a lot of sports writers and guys who get to vote for that thing who are dopes. And some of them I go, and I know from personal experience being around them during the time when I was one. I'd like to think I wasn't, but I never was a Heisman voter. But your late father, Ace Higgins, was the SID at LSU, and I'm blanking out on the years. It wasn't Billy Cannon's time, was it?
Yeah, he won. My dad won one and lost one. He won we say the Cannon one, he won, and then the Jerry Stovall one in 62, which is amazing that he lost to Terry Baker of Oregon State, who was barely on a winning team, I think. I mean, like maybe 6-6 or whatever. I mean, I think Stovall they lost 2 games that year. And Stovall did everything. He's the only guy in LSU football history who played offense. He played defense. He was the punter. He was the punt and kickoff returner. He did every one of those things every game. Probably the best overall player in LSU history. And came up second. When you come up second, it kind of crushes your SID. My dad was not in a good mood when that happened. But the Cannon thing was, in a time where there was no stuff on TV, none.
Right.
Billy Cannon had his Heisman moment, returned the punt 89 yards against Ole Miss on Halloween night. That was in 59. In 58, though, they won the national championship. 59, he had a Heisman type year too. So, I mean,
you were born 57, 56?
56, yeah.
56.
Yeah.
So you obviously weren't old enough to remember watching Billy Cannon, but you may have vague memories of watching Jerry Stovall as a really young kid.
Yeah, he was my guy. We've got a picture together when I was a kid. We both had crew. Yeah. My first LSU game was LSU beat TCU 5-0. I think it was 1962. Yeah.
Wow.
Only 5-0 game I've ever seen or been to or whatever, even in my professional career. But Jerry Stovall was my guy. I had the number 21 jersey. The hell I had been. He was my guy. So
when you were a little kid during that time, did your dad take you to work, so to speak, and did you have access to? Because those were exciting times and mythical figures, if you will, in the LSU lore of football.
Oh yeah, I certainly go like the Cotton Bowl. I mean, I go to bowl practices a lot. On Sundays when he'd work in the office after a Saturday home game, my brother and I would go with him and kick field goals out on the field and find a golf cart underneath the stand somewhere with a key in it. We go fly up and down the ramps and find Coke machines that were still turned on and just drank Coke till we got sick. Yeah, it was great stuff. Yeah. That's how I grew up. So it was a funny thing. I was looking at John Mushnick, who was a photographer. Who was a sports writer and advocate. And, took a lot of pictures of Maravich. He has a website now, and he has a lot of pictures of Maravich on there. And I was looking at him. I looked at the background, like, where's my dad? My dad was a PA guy for the basketball games for his first few years before he died. And one day, the game at courtside, see this smoke coming up. And what happened was, had the old mimeograph machines that they ran off the stats. You had to smell. And then they put it on there, and they take it off and put the stuff on the floor. Had chemicals on it. My dad was smoking a cigarette at courtside and threw his cigarette butt down, caught on fire. People were passing cups down the road to put it out in the middle of a game. But yeah, I grew up at a good time, and that's how I kind of got raised in sports and how sports writing started, and able to be in the press box and for a lot of really great games. I used to work up there, and even after he died, I worked up there. So it was a good education, really.
The coaches' kids are gym rats, and SID's kids are press box rats. We'll finish the Heisman discussion with this. So earlier in the week, I was doing my weekly gig with Matt Moscona, and he got put at the New York Athletic Club. They worked something where he could stay there. And that immediately recalled the story for me. In around 1991 or 1992, LSU and Tulane, we took a combined water polo team to an international tournament down in Clearwater, Florida. And our first game was against New York Athletic Club. They had just won the USA Indoor National Championship. I'm 6'2.5", and I would have been one of the smaller players on the New York Athletic Club team, NIAC as they call them. They beat us 24-1. I had the one, and then we went out with them that night and drank them into oblivion. And with that, I leave you with Ron Higgins. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Breck Parks have a purpose. They contribute to community revitalization and safer neighborhoods. They entice folks to get out there, promoting health and well-being. There are green spaces that help sustain natural ecosystems and buffer flooding. Parks help children learn, promote the arts and cultural programs. They drive tourism, economic development, and enhance property values. So take your pick. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Back on Sports 225, hanging out with Ron Higgins, he of Shreveport Journal fame, his own website, theronhiggins.com. You want to see his stuff at both. He is the dean of SEC sports writers. If you really count those times when we were talking earlier, when he was hanging out in the press box as a kid, his career goes back really, really long, really long.
Back to the 60s.
I haven't heard this discussed, and I don't know the answer to this. Is Jaden Daniels going to play in the LSU bowl game? And why would he?
Yeah, he hadn't decided yet. He didn't know. It's like, Bronco said the other day, he goes, I see both sides of it. I understand. He goes, I'd love to have him, but I understand if he wouldn't. It'll be interesting. I don't know. I have a feeling he's going to play. I just, for the sheer reason is this kid loves to play football. He's only had one injury his entire college career. That's a concussion he had. I think he had a sprained ankle one time. He does it for a guy who is not built really huge. He's done a good job of when he takes hits or he avoids injuries, he always pops back up. I mean, I know he was at Arizona State. I think he missed one game with sprained ankle. I remember I asked him, I said, how come you never get hurt? He goes, I just don't try to let people catch me. I'm fast. That has been a secret for him. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I mean,
an insurance policy that he would obviously take, that someone would either he would take or his agent would put out for him. You'd have to think that even $100 million would be not enough in the event of it, because this kid has the opportunity now, if his skill set still applies in the NFL. And he on the surface, I was thinking about what you said. I've always thought to myself, wow, he's fragile, but he's not. But he looks like the kind of guy that once he goes to the next level is just going to turn into a defensive lineman sandwich. And you wonder with that. So, but his initial contract, and if he survives that initial contract, the earnings potential that he has is staggering.
Yeah. And I think he's smart enough when he gets to the pros. He understands that I need to slide more. But I tell you, this year he's done a really good job. I mean, this year he's really stayed in the pocket a long time to go through his reads. And there's been some design runs for him. A lot of pass option stuff, a lot of quarterback draws, but his scrambles have been where he is basically really not like last year when he first got here, first half of the year, he would make one read and take off, just gone. And there were people open, and he's learned since then. He's gone into 5 a.m. film sessions all during the week, all season. He knows where to go with the ball, and so he really does a really good job of reading now. And so he holds. I mean, he's in the pocket a long time, a lot of times where he takes off, and when he takes off, there's a lot of room, and you don't want to give him a lot of room because he'll just run through everybody like they're not even there, and he's done that a bunch this year.
You came on with me in the preseason in August, and this LSU season kind of unfolded almost to the record and the way you thought it was going to happen. Is that fair?
Yeah. I thought about 9-3. Tops 10-2. I knew the Florida State game would be pivotal. I thought they'd had a chance to lose to Ole Miss because they're playing in Oxford and you're playing a team with offense, and that was one of the greatest offensive shootouts I've ever seen. And again, and who's to say? I mean, I think if he hadn't got hurt against Alabama, that game would have gone down the wire, because as long as Jaden, is upright and okay, they got a chance to the very end. But it just kind of tells you that without him, without him, this is a 7-5 team, maybe a 6-6. They're like 3 games that could have flipped the other way, which I always find it fascinating. I love this. LSU fan comments on playing Wisconsin. They're only 7-5. They should have found us a better team. Hey, Hoss, you could have been 7-5 real easy if you don't have the guy at quarterback. And that he's the reason they're 9-3. I mean, he saved their rear end so many times this year. It's remarkable. That's another reason why he'll win the Heisman, because without him, they barely break even.
You talk about Wisconsin. I mean, that league is pretty stout this year, the Big Ten, and it's going to get a lot stouter when you add in Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA. And with my head's still spinning over that. Stanford, Cal going to the ACC. The Big 12 is going to blow up even bigger than before. The Mountain West now looks like in football it's going to get Washington State and Oregon State, and they're still going to own the Pac-2. That's actually true. You go back to when we were, what I opened with and said, we knew, we grew up, there was a Pac-8, there was a Southwest Conference, there was a Big 8, and now there's going to be the Pac-2.
The Pac-2.
Let's take this last break. We'll finish up with Ron Higgins. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Rec parks have a purpose. They contribute to community revitalization and safer neighborhoods. They entice folks to get out there, promoting health and well-being. There are green spaces that help sustain natural ecosystems and buffer flooding. Parks help children learn, promote the arts and cultural programs. They drive tourism, economic development, and enhance property values. So take your pick. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
Coming down the home stretch of what will be the final live show of the 2023 season, because I'm gone next week. The week after is Christmas. The week after that, it's the holidays. And, we'll just have a best of. But there's no better way to finish it than being with Ron Higgins from the Shreveport Journal, theronhiggins.com. And final thoughts on the Final Four in football. Florida State goes unbeaten in the ACC. There's a lot of caveats there, but Florida State went unbeaten in the ACC.
When I voted on the Football Writers Association poll, I did it Saturday night. I picked those playoff teams in order like that, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Really?
Yeah. I go by the criteria that basically the playoff committee does is, yes, unfortunately, a player gets hurt. But if your team does not look as good as it has been at that moment, then are we going to put you in the playoff because you won all year? Maybe I get that. I understand that. I get it.
All right, biggest storyline coming up in 2024 in your sports world, and you got a 10-second answer.
Angel Reese takes over the Twitter universe.
He is Ron Higgins. Follow him on Twitter at
Ron Higg. Ron Higg, there I am. Ron Higg on Twitter.
Read his stuff at the Shreveport Journal and at theronhiggins.com. Mad Dog, you and Skippy, always great to see you both. All right, Skippy, not as good as when you went out with a drum solo, but it'll do. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you in 2024, and thanks to everybody for watching Sports 225.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry.